Welcome. I'm Travis.
And I'm Tyler, and this is Strategies for Success, a show that explores many topics while aiming to equip listeners with simple and practical lessons you can use in your everyday life.
Now join us on our journey as we reach for the impossible.
Welcome back, guys. Glad to have you with us today. Today's episode is titled, Why Have Enemies? So most all of us can relate at one point or another. We've had someone, whether we said they're their enemy or not, we probably thought it. We've had some enemies before. But the point of this lesson today is talking about sometimes we get too focused on everybody else and what everybody else is doing. And today's age of social media, it's really easy to get focused on what everybody else is doing. And I do it myself sometimes is, you're like, look at what that guy's doing, or, he looks like he's out driving a nice car or whatever that may be. You're like, that guy's really got it. But, they may be thinking that about you. And so, sometimes the grass isn't always greener. That's a phrase my dad always says. Sometimes the grass isn't always greener because you don't know the whole side. You don't know the whole story, basically. So, I like to play golf, and I think this is a pretty good metaphor. The way to look at this is there's been times where I've been playing golf with my friends, and, they're not really my enemies, but I'm a pretty competitive person. And so if we're playing golf with my buddies or family, whoever, and, if they hit a really good shot, sometimes I think, I got to hit a really good shot to match them here. And then sometimes I try something, if I'm behind a tree or something, I thought I can get this to the green where I should have just hit it out and made, took an extra shot, but it saved me from blowing up on that hole and having a really bad score. So it made me try to do something that's not really in my wheelhouse and not something that I'm really good at just because I'm focused on what the other guy's doing. When in reality, we're both kind of playing the same game of golf, and golf's not a team sport. You're by yourself. So that's something where if I would have just been smart there, I might have beat him on the next hole and he beat me on that one. But sometimes you just got to be smart, and instead of having an enemy in that situation, realize we're both playing the same game. We're both, it's me against the golf course, basically. I'm trying to get the best score. And, sometimes people get too focused on the other guy and your so-called enemies and don't try to better yourself.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. I love this. Why have enemies? So we sell brand, and I'm going to call it brand X here. So we sell the yellow guys on our lawn and garden products. You can figure out who that is. But we'll go to these dealer meetings and all over the country, and I refer to those quite a bit because we do them annually and with every brand. But it's always like, oh, that guy across town, he sold more than I did. He's my enemy. He's my enemy. But we don't look at it like we're growing the brand. Yes, he sold a lawnmower. That guy that bought from him may have never ever came over to my store. And I've even noticed this. It's unbelievable. Like I talked earlier about how we put church, family, work, different things into boxes. I've noticed that like some of the smaller stores with dealerships and some of the smaller churches, they're always worried about what the big church are doing. They're always like, man, that big church, they're after it over there. They're going to take me out. And when I go to the big church or when I go to the big store, most of the time they don't even know the little guys over there. They're just focused on what they're doing to make themselves successful. And that's the key that we want to bring out here. Why have enemies? You get so focused on chasing your enemy that you don't follow your own strategies for success. What makes you successful? So whatever they're doing at the big store or the big church or wherever it may be, those things down there, they're just focused on what it takes for them to be successful. It might be service, it might be product, it might be a special thing that one-off thing that they offer, but that's what they're focusing on. That's what they're going after. And you might have paid it if you were looking really close on our social media page, or even with the podcast, you might have noticed our logo, and we picked that logo very specifically. So, two astronauts sitting on the moon, looking back at Earth, and they're playing chess. I love chess. Strategies for success, right? So one of the greatest strategy games is chess, making you think many moves ahead. My son came up to him and he goes, "Hey, Dad, something's messed up with the chessboard on your picture there. There's only white pieces." So those white pieces, why are they not white and black? Why is it not us versus them? Why is it not a challenge, right? That's the game we want to win. Well, when Tyler, he mentioned a few episodes back about chasing happiness. And when I'm successful, I'll be happy. So a lot of times we do the same thing with when I win, I'm going to be happy. But we don't realize that if we're happy in our journey, we're happy in our life, and we're happy with what we're doing, we're going to be successful. So we're all playing the same game. Me and Tyler, we're not challenging. We both work at stores. We're not the same business. He works for his dad. I work for my dad. But instead of us being rivals as it's been for years, we work from our strengths to help each other. And so the chess game is set up. We're playing the same game. We're both trying to be successful. We're both trying to win, and we're reaching for the stars. We're reaching for the moon. And one more thing that I wanted to share here with this is I had one of our sales reps reach out to us, and he showed me this tic-tac-toe game. And basically, it was a game that was expanded. And so instead of just your normal, however many number, I think 9 squares that tic-tac-toe is, this was probably 80 squares, filled up a whole page. And he said, start making an X and I'll make an O. And about 85% of the people that do this, guy makes an X, they put an O right next to it. And the object of the game is to get 5 in a row. When you get 5 in a row, you add 1 to that, and you have 6. That added another 5 in a row, and another 5 in a row, and another 5 in a row. Well, like I said, 85% of the people spend the entire game blocking whatever move their opponent makes. But at the end of the day, if I make an X on one side of the page and he makes an O on the other side of the page, we can both fill up the entire board and have tons of X's and O's in a row, and we're both successful.
Right. I've seen, we've mentioned we work and sell farm equipment and lawn and garden stuff like that. And, I've even fallen trapped to it sometimes where you're like, no matter what, I'm not losing this deal to this other dealership or whatever. Or, someone's trading something in and they'll try to play you back and forth against each other. And sometimes it may not even be true. They may be just lying to you, but it's, sometimes people get so caught up into it. And if you got so caught up into never losing a deal to somebody else, you may be like selling something at cost or a loss or something. And next thing you know, you'll be out of business because you're so focused on beating the other guy. And they were actually, trying to make enough money to keep the lights on. So it's one of those deals is, there again, you get so focused on the other guy that you don't focus on, the people right around you and serving your customers well or helping your team or whatever the situation may be.
I know Tyler, coming from a lot of the same background as me, he's heard this one. They buy at big brand store, and they come in and they need it worked on. And what do a lot of people in our industry say?
Wow, what's that?
Yeah, you didn't buy that for me. You're gonna have to wait a long time, or take that piece of junk somewhere else. Yeah. And one thing that I've realized, one of our big customers that we had for many years, they had a green one. You could figure out what brand, and they brought it in as a tractor, snowy day, clearing snow, and they had told him that it was going to be a long time before they were able to get to it. He brought it to us. We said, well, let's see what's going on with it, and more than likely you're going to have to leave it with us, but let's just see what's going on first. So we check it out. We go out. We're cordial. We're friendly. No, he did not buy it from us. But guess what? The next 12 pieces came from us, because we weren't worried about where he bought it, what he did, and who he was partnered with. We were worried about taking care of a customer and making ourselves successful, because that's something that we're good at our place is service. So we wanted to show this guy what we're successful. And by doing that, he became our customer.
Yep. And they weren't focused on the other guys. They're focused on what they did well. And it's kind of what we talked about in the last episode, focusing on his strengths. And that was one of their strengths. And they, weren't worried about their enemy in that situation.
Absolutely. I'll share this too. I used to go to one of our big ag shows here in Tulsa, and I noticed the competitor would come around to our booth, to the orange guys, the green guys, all of them. And he was an owner. I recognized him. He was an owner of a store, owns several stores. And he would go around and introduce himself to everybody's employees. And at first I was like, what is this guy doing coming down here in my booth, introducing himself to my employees? Mm-hmm. Well, I decided I could go out there. I could have two choices here. I could go and tell the guy to get lost, or I could go introduce myself to him and meet him myself. So you know what? As a challenge, I did. That's exactly what I did. Did something I wasn't comfortable with, went and introduced myself. He gave me his name. We talked for a little bit. And I asked him about that. I said, so you just go around out here at the show and introduce yourself? He said, you know what? He said, I just go and meet everybody. I'm friendly to everybody. And by doing that, he said, you like a lot of people say, well, that guy, he works for the green guys or he works for the orange guys. I don't want to talk to him. He's my enemy. He said, I don't look at it that way. I look at, I'm going to go down and introduce myself and be friendly. And if they're ever not getting treated right, they're going to decide that, hey, we're all doing the same thing. But I think I'll just go down here and work for that guy that was friendly at me from the show, you know?
Yeah.
Pretty smart.
Yeah, and I guess another thing, I used to play football, and you know, one big thing is sports are always competitive, and sometimes you'd have these certain teams that are your rivals, and it's like you're just kind of taught to hate them. And you know, I'm all for being competitive and having rivals and stuff like that, but there was times where people from a certain town or played on a certain team, I just knew I would hate these guys if I ever met them. And so I went to some football camps where, you know, for college scouts and stuff like that. And it's at that point, it doesn't really matter what team you're on. You're just all out there together and get to talk to some of those guys. And you're like, hey, maybe this guy's not so bad. He's, you know, I thought I would just hate this guy, but, you know, he's just another guy like me trying to do the same thing where he's from. So, you know, sometimes people would just get so caught up in, you know, one thing I've seen happen a lot too at dealer meetings or just wherever, you know, everyday life is sometimes I get to thinking if I see someone with like a scowl on their face, I think, man, that guy thinks he's something or he thinks, you know, if I went up and shook his hand, he wouldn't even shake my hand because he probably would just hate me. But, you know, if you ever step out of your comfort zone and go introduce yourself to them people or go talk to them, it's amazing. Sometimes it'll catch people off guard and they'll be like, what are you doing? And the next thing you know, you're having a conversation with them and you realize they're pretty cool. But if you never took the chance or if you never, you know, if you don't think that they're against you, you think that hey, just another guy, you know, you can meet a lot of cool people that way and make a lot of connections.
Don't get us wrong. You might walk up and find out they are a jerk. But
yeah, it may happen every once in a while.
This is dangerous. Tyler letting me give the challenge this week, and I just tell you just a quick story. It's back to one of our dealer meetings, and this is going to lead into our challenge. But I sat at a table, and a guy was looked over there, and he's like, "I hate filing warranties because they never pay us anything, and you know it's us versus them, and I always have to call. I have to call once a week and tell those guys how stupid they are just to get paid." And I said, "Wow, that's an interesting approach, you know." And he goes, "Well, what do you do?" Well, what we do is we send the warranty team with our manufacturers along with our reps, even the ones we don't like or maybe are hard to deal with. We send them a cookie basket or a pocket knife or whatever at the end of every year, tell them thank you for working with us. And we have taken a lot of enemies. I've had people too that this is next level stuff here, but where you have someone that just goes out of their way to be rude to you. And I used to think, you know what, I'm going to show that person. And all that does is escalate the situation and it doesn't end well. So I felt like, and again, in spiritual growth, reading my Bible and praying that I felt like, you know what, that's not the right approach. And I felt like that I should take and give my enemy a gift. And so I had a guy that didn't like me for whatever reason. And I showed up, took him a pretty nice gift. And you and talk about him about just couldn't believe that I would bring him a gift. And the other day, the guy showed up and gave me like a $500 gift out of the blue. And this guy used to not even like me. So here's your challenge. This is not easy. All right. So I'm laying it out here. I want you to pick somebody that might be categorized as, doesn't have to be your enemy, but maybe not your friend. And I want you to go out of your way, take that person a card. I want you to give that person a phone call. I want you to comment on their social media post thinking about you. I hope everything is going your way, but go out of your way.
Yeah, and with every challenge, Travis and I will participate in this. So we usually, with these, we try to post stuff on our social media pages that sharing our story. So in these, you don't have to share any names, okay? Don't have to share any names of who your so-called enemies are. But if you guys want to share, you know, maybe just a basic story of what happened and what you did to turn your enemy into one of your friends.
I like it. So, as Tyler always says, we've laid out the challenge. We've given you some strategies for success, and now it's time for you to
execute.
That's right.
Thank you for learning with us.
Join us next time as we reach for the impossible. I'm Travis,
And I'm Tyler.
and this is
Strategies for Success.